Good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Cordy. I'm the Mayor of Mount Alexander Shire. To start the official proceedings, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on Jara country, of which the members and elders of the Jara community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. Council meetings are audio and video recorded and are made available to the public via electronic media, including YouTube. The Local Government Act, the Act, Part 12, Section 395 of the Act, states that council meetings may be closed to the public during the prescribed period, 1st of May 2020 to 26th of April 2021, provided it is live streamed and the community have been provided means to submit statements or questions for council response. This is to ensure local government decision making can continue and remains transparent during the coronavirus pandemic. Councillors and council staff are required to continue to act in accordance with the Councillors' Code of Conduct and the Local Government Acts 1989 and 2020, local laws and other acts and policies as prescribed. Where there are technical difficulties in being able to broadcast the meeting to the public, the meeting will be adjourned for 30 minutes until the issue is resolved or postponed to 6 p.m. 18th February 2021. We have a recommendation, and councillors, I'll read that out just so that we're all on the same page. Recommendation that Council 1 closes the meeting of Council 16th of February 2021 under the Local Government Act 2020, Part 12, Section 395, and 2, notes that where there are technical difficulties in being able to broadcast the meeting to the public, the meeting will be adjourned for 30 minutes until the issue is resolved or postponed to 6 p.m. 18th February 2021. Councillors, do I have a mover? Councillor Gardner, a seconder. Councillor Driscoll, all in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. This evening we have all 7 councillors present, so that's good. And we also have the CEO, Darren Fuzzard. We have our 2 directors, and we also have Gussie Shepherd from Governance. So thank you everyone for attending. So item 2 on the agenda's apologies, so there's no apologies to report. Councillors, declaration of interests of conflicts of interest. Does anyone have a declaration of interest to report? See everyone shaking their heads, so there's no declarations of interest. Thank you for that. Item 4, confirmation of minutes, a meeting of council on the 15th of December 2020. Councillors, do I have a motion there? Move Councillor Henderson.
They be approved? Confirmed, sorry.
Seconded Councillor McClure. So just so we've got this straight, the recommendation is that the minutes of the meeting of the Mount Alexander Shire Council held on 15th of December 2020 be confirmed. In favour, please? Everyone's in favour. Thank you very much. Acknowledgements. We haven't got any acknowledgements to make. Public question time. We've actually received 3 questions, and I'll go through them. They've been received via email, and I'll go through them in the order that they're received. The first one is from Mr. John Lewis, and starts with a statement. During the meeting of council on September 15th, the council hastily approved a revised master plan for the much needed redevelopment of the Camp Reserve. Camp Reserve is one of the Castlemaine's two largest and most important outdoor recreational spaces and serves multiple uses. The approved master plan is in part at odds with advisories from the Council's administration and also at odds with preferences expressed by local residents and the wider community during public consultation. Okay, the question from John Lewis: how can council rethink its approach to redeveloping Camp Reserve so that it integrates the varied aspirations the community has for the space, including its historical significance, natural amenity, broad-based community recreation, public events, and organised competitive sport? And just before we go further, I'll just acknowledge that John Lewis advises that he's writing on behalf of the West of the Reserve Residents Group and the Camp Reserve Progress Group. So thank you, John. Now I'll just call on our Director of Infrastructure and Development, Jess Howard, to give us a response to that one. Thank you, Jess.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to John for his question on behalf of the local residents. The first thing I want to say is that this question was actually submitted last year, and due to an administrative error, we were not aware of it, and so it wasn't addressed at a earlier council meeting, and I want to apologise for John, as we have done in person, for that happening. The CEO and I have met with John and other representatives of the residents to hear their concerns firsthand, and some of this has been shared with councillors. It should be said that there was an extensive consultation process that was undertaken in relation to the Camp Reserve Master Plan, as councillors would be aware. However, nevertheless, there are some ongoing concerns from the residents, and an opportunity has been offered to them to come on a deputation to councillors to present those concerns in person, and I understand that's in the process of being arranged.
Thanks for that, Director Howard. Appreciate that. So there's more to go with the Camp Reserve Master Plan, I'm sure. Okay, the next two matters both relate to 37 Farnsworth Street. So I'll read them both out, and then I'll ask Director Howard to respond. So I've got the first one's from Alice Matheson, and Alice makes a statement saying, remediation of the private earthworks on the public verge in front of 37 Farnsworth Street on Heritage Overlay 668 is far from complete. The treated pine poles have not been removed by council as promised by Jess Howard on 21/1/2021. The dimensions of the fill exceeds the now expired minor works permit. The public walking path does not meet Australian standards for pathways, AS 1428, because the ground level is built up and not remediated as council stipulated. How can families with prams walk to school on this new terrain? And a further question, does council have the resolve to see these irregular works brought into conformity with the granted minor works permit and with safety standards? Will we receive the council's heritage report regarding these works? Will council's engineer meet us on site to review the incomplete remediation as we've requested on several occasions? Okay, so that's the first one. The second one is from David Rako. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, David, but anyway, I'm doing my best. And there's a statement that David's made here. For 11 months, our local community has made numerous requests for an on-site meeting with council officers to discuss relevant concerns. Why have these, this is the question, why have these requests been ignored and continue to be ignored? An on-site meeting will be more constructive than a chain of emails between departments and community. Will you agree to a meeting? If not, why not? So that's from David Rako. And I'll hand over to Director of Infrastructure and Development, Jess Howard. Jess, if you could respond to both of those, please.
Thank you, Mayor. And as councillors will be aware, there's been ongoing interest in the resolution of the minor works that were undertaken at 37 Farnsworth Street. And in response to the questions asked, starting with the question of the path rectification, Alice is correct that we are still working with the owner on rectifying the situation with the path. That work remains outstanding, and we'll continue to work through those matters as a matter of urgency. In relation to the rectification works and the questions relating to whether those works were done in accordance with council's requirements, as has been confirmed with the questioner in the past, that those works have been completed to council's satisfaction, and a council engineer was on site at the time. And for that reason, with the works having been complete in terms of what the owner was required to do for those fill works, there's no need at this stage for an on-site meeting. An engineer was present at the time, and we feel like that was adequately addressed. These questions have also been raised with us by email, and we'll make sure that we confirm this in writing shortly with the correspondence.
Thanks for that, Director Jess. I've got a question in relation to this matter from Councillor Stephen Gardner. Councillor Gardner.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. I think one of the questions, Jess, was, is it possible someone to go and meet them? I mean, I think, and I know this is a long-going issue and may or may not be resolved, but maybe one way is that someone from the council goes and meets them and talk to them and try and finalise it.
More than happy to meet Councillor Gardner. There has been a meeting with the CEO, myself and the Mayor in the past in relation to these issues, and a series of ongoing correspondence to address the issues of concern. Happy to have a meeting on site as needed, noting that many of the matters that have been raised have been addressed on site by council staff previously.
Thanks for that, Director Jess and Councillor Gardner. Okay, councillors, I think that concludes public question time for this evening. We'll just move on to item 7 on your agenda, which is petitions and joint letters. 7.1, change of speed zones in the Baringup precinct. Council has received a petition on 2nd of February 2021 from residents in relation to their concerns at the speed zoning and limits through Baringup, Victoria. In addition, the excessive noise levels of the increasing heavy traffic on Baringup Road, Baringup. Councillors, I have a recommendation. I've got Councillor Gardner's got his hand up to move that. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I just move it as printed, that we receive a report from council officers at the next council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner, and seconded Councillor Driscoll. All in favour?
Could I say something?
Yes, Councillor Gardner.
I just wanted to say that this has been a standing issue. Particularly, it has been raised a number of times, and at this point, it's been a to and fro between council and Vic Road. The Baringup residents are concerned mainly because there's a lot of trucks, particularly going through that come from South Australia, basically, all the way through. It's constant, so they like to see some speed changes, and then also down to Cancurran. It's 100 k's, which is now, there's quite a number of new residents along those roads and internally. So I would really encourage our council officers to support the changes in those areas.
Thanks for that, Councillor Gardner. Okay, we'll move on to 7.2, requesting the sealing of Bara and Bagshaw Streets, Harcourt. Council has received a petition on 3rd of February 2021 from residents requesting the sealing of Bara and Bagshaw Streets, Harcourt. Councillors, do I have a motion there? Councillor Mulby.
I'm happy to move the council receives a report on this petition from residents requesting the sealing of Bara and Bagshaw Streets, Harcourt at the next meeting of council.
Got a seconder, please, councillors? Councillor Henderson. All in favour? The recommendation is carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 8 on the agenda is committee reports, and there's nil. Item 9, officer reports. 9.1.1, councillor code of conduct. I'll just read the executive summary so everyone knows what we're talking about. Council is required to approve a revised council code of conduct that incorporates the requirements under the new Local Government Act 2020, including the overarching governance principles and local government governance and integrity regulations 2020. The regulations address the governance and integrity components of the Local Government Act 2020, which commenced operation on 24th October 2020. The code must include the standards of conduct expected to be observed by councillors as prescribed in the regulations, and may include other matters that the council considers appropriate. Councillors, do I have a motion there? Councillor McClure? You're muted, Councillor McClure.
To apologise. Thanks, Mayor Tony. I'd like to move that the council adopts the council code of conduct 2021.
Yeah, adopts and signs is the actual wording, Gary. So do we have a seconder? Councillor Gardner. So all in favour? Declare the matter carried. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is 9.1.2, updated COVID-19 financial hardship policy. In response to the state of emergency declared in Victoria on 16th March 2020, Council adopted a COVID-19 financial hardship policy at its meeting on 16th of June 2020. Policy was adopted with a review date of mid-January 2021. Given the occurrence of a second wave of coronavirus outbreak in Victoria, the subsequent community lockdowns and the imposition of restrictions on freedom of movement across the country, our communities and economies are still vulnerable and not as robust as they have otherwise been. As a result, adoption of a COVID-19 financial hardship policy for a further period is proposed. Councillors, do I have a motion there? Councillor Anir?
I move that Council adopts version 2 of the COVID-19 financial hardship policy.
Thanks for that, Councillor Anir. Have we got a seconder there, please? Councillor Driscoll. All in favour? No opposition. Sorry about that. Thank you, councillors. The next item is 9.1.3, planning application PO 047/2020, 100 Allendale Road, Elphinstone. I'll just read the first paragraph of the executive summary. Council has received an application for the use and development of the land for a place of assembly, a festival, at 100 Allendale Road, Elphinstone. The subject site is located within the farming zone and is affected by the Design and Development Overlay Schedule 1 and the Environmental Significance Overlay Schedule 1. Planning approval is required under the zoning and both overlays. The proposal seeks to utilise the majority of the site with a stage area, parking area, camping area and food truck area. The event proposes to have a maximum patronage of 1,500 persons and run a single event between 12th and 14th of November 2021. And this, just noting there's been 17 objections received. Councillors, do I have a motion in relation to this? Councillor Henderson.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to move the recommendation as provided by our planning department, which is that council issue a notice of decision to refuse a planning permit for the use and development of the land for a place of assembly, brackets festival, at 100 Allendale Road, Elphinstone, on the 5 different grounds which are printed in the agenda, which I allow my fellow councillors and any interested parties to read. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Do I have a seconder for that motion, please? Councillor McClure. Thank you. Okay. Do I have any objectors to that motion? I see some hands going up there. So, councillors, we'll put it to the vote in a minute. But Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor. Well, our planning department has considered the application. It is in many ways a laudable application to run a festival. That's always a happy thing, we hope. Up to 1,500 people on a property in the rural area adjacent to Elphinstone in the farming zone. However, the recommendation to refuse is based on the fact that it doesn't fit it's not an orderly planning outcome, as the bushfire risk associated with the site has not been satisfied. So that's one of the big ones, I think. There are many things. We've had a lot of objections, and of course, people are very concerned about the noise. Personally, I find it hard to see how they would manage to comply with the requirements of the EPA noise requirements. It is for not a very extended time. However, it is for a weekend, a Friday night and a Saturday and Sunday morning. Yoga somewhere in the middle of all that. But I think for my main concerns and the main reasons I urge my fellow councillors to seriously consider this before deciding to suggest it should be approved. First of all, the fact that it is in a bushfire zone, it is in the country, it is, according to the officer's report, the subject site is located on a dead-end road with one egress point, which would likely result in detrimental traffic congestion in an emergency event. Further, the event itself poses bushfire risk given the nature of camping activities, regardless of banning cooking and campfires and other festival activities. Verbal discussions with the CFA indicate that a grass fire within the site would spread quickly, and the ability to move all patrons, think of this, 1,500 patrons, to move all patrons off the site down a narrow farm track onto a narrow road would be limited by the site conditions and the road network surrounding the site. In addition to this, traffic congestion caused by the event in a bushfire emergency may also limit the ability for surrounding households to navigate the road network. So the bushfire risk is very real. It's proposed to hold it in November. If it was last November, probably not a problem. The bushfire Danger zone time didn't start. I think fire restrictions didn't come in until the start of December last year. The year before, we were in the middle of a very serious fire time. Luckily, we were spared, but other parts of the country were severely impacted. So we know that it can be a very dangerous time. The other thing is that the access is off a particularly dangerous right-angled bend on a major road, 100 kilometres an hour travel. And the report says that Vic Roads does not object to the issue of a permit subject to the following conditions. At least 3 months prior to the event, the following must be completed to the written satisfaction of the head of Transport for Victoria. First of all, a risk management plan to show that they're not causing any distraction to the traffic on the freeway. Remember, this land abuts the freeway. It fronts onto the freeway. Their stage is proposed to face the freeway. 110 kilometres an hour traffic both ways, nighttime, daytime. Secondly, a traffic management plan must be prepared by a Vic Roads pre-approved traffic consultant, taking into consideration a high number of right-turning vehicles at the Bendigo Sutton Grange Road, Allendale Road intersection on a high-speed environment with substandard sight lines and without streetlights. Now, I suggest, councillors, that gaining these approvals will be near impossible. These people are proposing to have 5 extra people helping them. 7 people working there to run this festival for 1,500 people. And they're going to do all this? Yeah, I have read all their plans. So I suggest that setting them up to fail or in extreme danger is not a good idea. Therefore, I suggest that we follow the officer's recommendation and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Henderson. Really put a lot of thought into that. Councillor McClure, as seconder, you can speak now or you can speak later. Which would you like to do?
I'll speak now, Mayor. I have a number of concerns. I mean, I do applaud these guys, two gentlemen, for having a go at this festival. I think that, you know, they're a great event, and there's a lot of young people around that do enjoy these events. My major concern is around the bona fides of these people, the promoters of this event. I can't find any information out too much about them. I've rung quite a few people in the industry that I know run events of this nature, and they didn't know much about them. So, I mean, I've got some concerns about their ability to run such an event. It's quite a responsible thing to do, to have 1,500 people in your charge over a weekend, and there are a number of risks. And when you look at their emergency management plan, all this management has been taken basically by 2 people. I'd have probably felt a little bit more comfortable if there was a few more people thrown or put into that management plan in terms of people that had expertise in areas such as security. There was no name of any security organisation that was going to be on site to manage the security around the event. First aid, there was not much mention about who that, it could have been St John's Ambulance. But look, I do have some concerns about the ability of these 2 men to manage such an event over a weekend in the event of an emergency or, you know, crowd control, particularly security around the event during the night and so forth. Been very little discussion about the control of alcohol or drugs. We're talking about a young population that would support this event, and we all know that those issues are going to be prevalent on site, or you would imagine they would be. There was some talk about them screening for those things while people are coming into the event, but I don't know how they're going to do it, and they don't tell you how they're going to screen for those sorts of things during the event. So look, I support the concept of the event. I haven't got the concerns that Christine Henderson or Councillor Henderson does have about its location. My concerns really evolve around the ability of these promoters to manage this event over that weekend. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks for that, Councillor McClure. So we've got the motion. Does anyone that is expressed opposition to the motion wish to speak? Councillor Gardner? You're muted, my friend.
Bill, I think you wanted to speak.
Yeah, I did. I did put my hand up, but anyway, you can go first.
Councillor Mulby, would you like to speak?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I've noted Councillor McClure's and Henderson's objections. The people that have applied have certainly prepared a very good plan, a very good submission. It does cover the security. It does cover St John's Ambulance. There's consultation with the Country Fire Authority. It will bring to this district an opportunity to boost the economy because, and if we think about tourism and COVID, there's a need. It also will give a different festival for music lovers that hasn't been in the district for many years. You know, these people from their submission to council some weeks ago at the objectors meeting did say they'd ran previous festivals. You can only take that on their submission to you. Not everybody is John Farnham's manager. So what I'm saying is I can't see a problem because the submission is right. If this motion doesn't get up, I'll move another one that will have conditions that they will meet and can meet from what I've read and heard.
Thanks for that, Councillor Mulby. Councillor Gardner, do you wish to speak now?
Well, I suppose in some ways I'd echo what Councillor Mulby have just said. I do think that they've covered off in their emergency management plan. I must admit when first saw it and heard it, and even when listening to one of the applicants, I was a bit hesitant, but after sort of hearing a bit more, I do think they have the ability and skills to do it. One of the problems I think generally, I mean, and I will say, I mean, I personally have attended a number of these festivals, you know, and you know, and probably even bigger ones, Splendor on the Grass, one night stands, those sorts of things, and that is actually a concert if people are asking. And they are good for these little towns when they occur. And I think that at the moment, one of the problems is that kids all around, and I'm saying kids up to the age of 30, they actually have nowhere to go because not many shires or places are allowing them to do these sorts of things anymore. So for me, I think they satisfy, so should we say, amenity and emergency management type scenarios. And I personally believe that encouraging these sorts of festivals in our shire would be a good thing.
Thanks for that, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Anir, would you like to talk to this matter?
Thank you, Mayor. As the resident kid on council, falling in the under 30 age bracket, I guess I'd like to talk, as a young person a little bit. I talked to lots of young residents about the possibility of a festival happening here, and everyone was very excited. It's been a really hard year for everyone, but there's not a lot to do here for young people. I grew up here. I got up to a lot of not great things because there is not a lot to do here, and having an orderly festival to go to, while there may be some drinking, it's mentioned in their plan that they will be screening for drugs. How they do that, that's up to their security company. There are a number of methods, but you know, they're pretty good at it now. Festivals have to screen for drugs and they've gotten pretty good. I think the resounding sense that I'm getting from the younger community that I've been talking to is that this would be a really great thing, something to look forward to this year after, not a great last year and not a great beginning to this year. And I think that while these young men, haven't organised anything of this size before, everyone has to start somewhere. And I think not giving them a chance because they haven't done it before is kind of counterintuitive. They need to have a chance to prove they can do it. And I think, I'm just thinking for myself, if I were doing something like this, I would have a whole band of friends and other supports around who are probably not listed on their emergency management plan, but who will be there supporting them. And you know that they're planning to have 90 volunteers helping. Most festivals, many of the ones that Councillor Gardner mentioned, run on volunteers who are doing just as much work as the paid people. They're often working for a free ticket. And I think that, I think that they should have it under control. I mean, I see this as a really positive thing for the younger community, and I really hope that it can safely go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Anir. Okay, Councillor Driscoll, everyone else has had a say. You better have your say, and then we'll put it to the vote.
Thank you, Mayor. Whilst I think Footloose is a fantastic movie and I quite like Kevin Bacon, I don't want to be part of a council that trying to put a ban on singing and dancing. So I object to Christine Henderson's motion. So that's just my thoughts.
Thanks for that, Councillor Driscoll. It's actually an officer's recommendation that was been put forward by Councillor Henderson. So let's put it for a vote. Those in favour of the motion, put your hands up, please. Those against? The against have the numbers. So
for a division, Mayor.
Okay, we'll call for a division. So those in favour, please put your hands up again, and I'll just confirm with governance. Can you see who's got their hands up there, governance?
Name them.
So you're right with that. So those against, please raise your hands. Have you got that, Gussie? The lights going off on me here. We'll have to move around a bit. Okay, I've got a halo effect happening, so that's pretty impressive. So the motion is lost. Councillors, do we have any further motions?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move another recommendation.
Yes, Councillor Mulby. What is it?
The council issued a notice of decision to grant a permit for the use and development of the land for a place of assembly festival, subject to the conditions that have been printed.
Okay, Councillor Mulby, we're gonna have those conditions put up.
Thank you.
So just while we do that, do we have a seconder for the motion? Is anyone going to second it? Yes, we've got Councillor Gardner there. I think he's first with his hand up. So we've got a mover and a seconder, and we've got conditions there. And
can we just scroll that down, please?
Yeah, we'll scroll that through, please, Gussie. So I think one of the things I'd note is I was reading these proposed conditions earlier, and they're quite onerous. There's a lot of conditions there. So
just when we get to 18, I just want to check one.
Yep, that's good. Well, we'll just keep scrolling down for a moment.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Can we keep going, please, to the end?
Sorry, I can't hear you. Can you say that again?
Can we please keep going through the conditions to the end?
Yes.
Before the debate starts, because I may have a question for an officer.
Yep.
Thank you. Could we go back to clause 32, please? I'd like to ask Director Howard a question.
Yes, go ahead, please, Councillor Henderson.
So this is, as I referred to earlier in my support for the motion to refuse, at least 3 months prior to the event, the following must be completed to the satisfaction, written satisfaction of the Head of Transport Victoria. First of all, a risk management plan. This is in regard to noise interference from the adjacent Calder Highway, etc., etc., and a distraction to the freeway traffic by portable light towers and any other matter, and also a traffic management plan. So I'm asking, this has to be done and get 3 months in advance and get written approval. So if the event goes ahead, can the public be assured that Transport for Victoria has approved these two plans? That's what I want to know. And will these plans be made public as per those provided in their original application?
Sorry, are we debating or are we?
No, I'm asking the question of Director Howard. I want to know, how will we know that they have received, because this is part of the conditions for approval. This is part of proposed conditions for approval. How will we know that 32A and 32B have been satisfied?
Thanks for that, Councillor Henderson. Director Howard, can you give us an answer on that one? Must be muted.
Sorry, Mayor, I was having some mouse problems. In relation to the impact of that condition, that means that if the applicant is unable to get approval from Head of Transport for Victoria or any of the relevant external authorities that are referred to in the other conditions for the required plans or approvals, then they can't act on the planning permit. So they must get those approvals in order for the event to proceed. If they happen to proceed without having satisfied all the relevant conditions, then there would be an enforcement issue, obviously. But the intention with this is they must be obtained in order for the event to proceed.
Okay, thanks very, very much for that, Director Howard. Councillor Henderson, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much for that. Councillors, we've got, have we got any objection to the proposed motion?
I'll have to object.
Yeah, so I'm an objector as well. So we will move to the debate. Councillor Mulby, would you like to talk to your motion, please?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. As I said earlier, when I was opposing the original motion, there's an opportunity here for something to be done and happen. There are stringent conditions. The people that are proposing it did impress me at the objectors meeting. Their application is thorough, so I'm in favour of it happening.
Okay, thanks for that. Who was the seconder? Sorry, Councillor Gardner. Do you wish to speak now or at the end?
I'll just briefly. I mean, I think we've sort of discussed it. I mean, there are some very large hurdles. I mean, for the general community out there who thinks that we're being a bit sort of, or me, are being a bit maverick about this. I mean, there are some really large hurdles that these organisers have to jump. And in some ways, you know, it's a shame that for these sorts of events to happen, that you know, there's so much bureaucratic red tape, but that's the world we live in. There will be requirement to, you know, CFA, EPA, the road traffic management. I mean, and these will be difficult to get, and if they don't get it, it won't go ahead. So yeah, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't go ahead.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Henderson, do you wish to speak against it, or if we cover it?
Yeah, I'll have to do that. I mean, obviously, I move the motion to refuse. So I think I just have to point out that for the same reasons, I think for the risk of bushfire, for the risk of traffic, a nasty traffic accident at that intersection, it's not the right place. I hate to be a wowser speaking against something like this. I think it's, in principle, it'd be great if we had a festival like this happen. However, I think also we're setting them up to fail in many ways in order to get the approval from Transport for Victoria. I think the conditions are just hugely onerous, apart from the CFA, apart from EPA. Anyway, we shall see what we shall see, but I remain opposed to it on those matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillors, does anyone else wish to speak on the matter? Okay, so we've got nobody else needs to speak by look at it. So we've got the motion before us proposed by Councillor Mulby that would see the festival going ahead subject to conditions. Can we have those in favour, please put up your hands? Okay, those against? Okay, I declare the matter carried, and yeah, it looks like subject to a lot of dotting the I's and crossing the T's, that something might happen at Allendale Road. So we'll watch that with interest. Thank you very much. We'll move on now. Okay, the next item is 9.1.4, planning application PA 281/2020, which is for 23A Galton Street, Castlemaine. Council has received an application for the development of the land for a dwelling and garage and a variation to a restrictive covenant building envelope. The subject site is located within the general residential zone, Schedule 1, and is affected by the Heritage Overlay, HO 668. Planning approval is required to construct a building or carry out works under the Heritage Overlay and to vary a restrictive covenant under clause 52.02 of the Mount Alexander Planning Scheme. Okay. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor McClure?
Mayor, I'm happy to move the motion as printed in the report. I think it's going to be put up on the screen, isn't it, Tony, Mayor?
Well, I'm not sure whether it needs to be put up on the screen. It's as printed, Gary. So do we have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Anea? Okay. Before we go further, is there any opposition to the motion? Doesn't look like a lot of opposition there. Would you like to talk to the motion, Councillor McClure?
No, I've got nothing further to add to the motion. I think it's quite well documented, the provisions of the planning application for what the proponents have to do to the property. So I'm happy with that. So no, I've got nothing more to add. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks for that, Councillor McClure. Councillor Anea, would you like to talk to this matter as a seconder?
Sure. Only to say that there was only one objection, and we as councillors met with the applicant and objectors, and it was so lovely. It was the loveliest applicant objector meeting I've ever seen, and I wish they could all be like that. So I'm so glad they could sort out their differences, and everything else looks great.
Thanks for that, Councillor Anea. Do any other councillors wish to speak on this matter? If not, we'll put it to the vote. Oh, Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak?
I was really, it's not, I mean, I'm not speaking against it. I just want to register that I'm rather disappointed that the house will fill up most of the block. And it just seems a bit of an overdevelopment of a beautiful street. And obviously paves the way for the same thing to happen all the way down the street. So I find that disappointing, but that's just a personal comment. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Henderson. Can have a show of hands for those in favour of the motion, please. All in favour, I declare the matter carried. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the agenda is 9.2.1, which is the community engagement policy. The purpose of the report is for Council to adopt the revised community engagement policy. The current policy was adopted by Council in March 2020. A review of this policy has recently been undertaken to ensure compliance with the new requirements for community engagement as noted in the Local Government Act 2020. Additionally, the community engagement policy went out for public consultation from 23rd December 2020 to 18th January 2021, and amendments have been made to the policy based on community feedback. Council received 9 submissions during the public consultation period. All feedback has been considered and amendments have been incorporated into the revised policy. Councillors, do I have a motion, please? Councillor Driscoll?
Thank you, Mayor. That Council adopts the community engagement policy.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please, councillors? Councillor Mulby. Is there any objection to the policy, councillors? Okay, Councillor Driscoll, would you like to talk to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I think the officers have done a fantastic job with this. A lot of work has gone into this, and it's very important from a community perspective. When it went out, there was 9 submissions, and I'd just like to thank those people who have come back to council with their comments. I think if more people did that, it would make people's lives a lot easier from a council perspective. So I want to thank that, and I want to thank the officers for this. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. Does the seconder wish to say anything?
I'd agree with Matthew, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Henderson.
Always want to get a word in now, just to say that, to thank the officers for their work on this, and also to thank for the input from the submitters, and in particular a certain former mayor of this shire whose one of her particular passions was community engagement, and she's put a full professional weight behind this and has certainly had an impact on the final form of the community engagement policy. I thank her very much for her input. I think it makes it an even better document than what we had, and one that should be of great service to the community. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for that, Councillor Henderson. And I'd just like to note, and then I'll hand over to Councillor Gardner, that I'd just like to acknowledge that some of the submissions that we received had a lot of work in them. So I'd just like to acknowledge that we really appreciated that work. Thank you very much. Councillor Gardner.
Yeah, I'm not speaking against it, but I suppose it's more a word of caution. Community engagement for me is one of those really complex and difficult things. Now, this is a thing that was obviously mandated under the Local Government Act, so it's something we have to do. But in there's terms like deliberative engagement and blah, blah, blah. Now, my problem or concern, I suppose, going into the future is that I think quite often the reality is people engage when they want to, so there's a particular issue, and we will hear from them, and we still do. And the people who will get involved in these, however we go forward with it, will be people who've got an axe to grind. So it concerns me a little bit, and so I'm hoping, and I know part of it is that council officers need to make sure we reach out to a broad range of community members, so we try and get as much views as possible. But I suppose I just want to raise my concern is that we as councillors are called to make decisions, and I don't want to see progress and processes slow down any further than we do, because we have to keep delaying and making things more complex than they should be. But I do support it.
Thanks for that, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Henderson.
I realise I had my go in the debate. Could I just ask a question from Director Knight in regard to a comment that Councillor Gardner made? He is pointing out the common problem we have of community engagement, engaging those who habitually engage with council or who have a particular axe to grind about a particular matter. Maybe she could speak to us in preliminary terms about how we plan to go beyond that in our future engagement with our all-important council plan engagement.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson and Councillor Gardner. That's probably been one of the key changes made to the policy in response to the feedback. So under item 3, under principles, the inclusiveness and accessible participation has been one of the key changes to the policy, and that's making sure that we broaden the opportunity for feedback from all cohorts within the community. Under the 2020 Local Government Act, it does talk about deliberative engagement versus community engagement. So certainly for the council plan, the 10-year community vision, and also the municipal public health, we are mandated to undertake deliberative engagement. There's lots of definitions of what that means. For us, that means meaningful engagement, and that means reaching out to all cohorts, and whether that be place-based, whether that be letter drops, listening posts, whatever council decides deliberative engagement constitutes is what we've committed to ensuring as part of this policy. And I do apologise, I think I have an unstable internet connection as well as the sun in my eyes. So I hope that you caught all of that then, councillors.
Thank you, Director Knight. It sounded like you were talking underwater there for a moment, but I think we got the message. Councillors, can I have a show of hands for those in favour of the motion, please? Declare the matter carried. Thank you very much. That brings us through to item 10 on the agenda, and I'll call on our CEO, Darren Fuzzard, to give his report, and then we'll hear from councillors, please. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mayor. And I'll just ask the Principal Governance Officer if she could put our list of activities up on the screen, Mayor, for the community to see, as well as yourselves who've got copies. This is a list for 16th of December, as it says, through to the 16th of February, which is when our last meeting was, of course, Mayor. Before I do that, can I just say thank you to all of the councillors for your efforts in developing and supporting tonight both of those new documents, the Councillor Code of Conduct, as well as the Community Engagement Policy. As many of you acknowledged, there's been an enormous amount of work done by many staff to make both of those documents as good as what they are, and also your significant efforts to make sure that we had it the way that you wanted it to be. Really appreciate that, Mayor, and just wanted to say thank you to all of you, as well as really well done to all the staff involved in those really important documents, which are, as the councillors know, 2 of the many documents that we need to get in place as a result of the new Local Government Act coming into force, and lots more work to do, Mayor. In relation to, another big thank you, if I could just say, Mayor, we didn't get there tonight. We know that the councillors were really, really keen to be able to not only be back in person yourselves, but also to have the community back there in the crowd watching the show in person. I would really want to say a big thank you to the governance team, the IT team, the media and comms team, and the events team. And I hope I haven't missed any other teams who did everything they possibly could, Mayor, to try and make that possible for you in the town hall tonight. Unfortunately, the restrictions came back in and we just weren't allowed to do that. But the plans are ready for next month, Mayor, and we will do our best to make that happen if we're allowed to then. So thank you, everybody, for the effort. A couple in the list that I just wanted to mention, Mayor, that you certainly are also a very big part of, I think, both of them. The Castlemaine State Festival launch event. I just wanted to say, acknowledge that event. It was a great kickoff to the coming festival, and just wanted to say congratulations to Glenn Roberts and his team for a really great job there in kicking off the event in the Botanical Gardens a little bit ago. And do a quick plug. It's for those who haven't got their tickets already, 19th of March through to the 4th of April is when it's on. castlemainefestival.com.au is where you can get your tickets for that. It's going to be fantastic. Really recommend, if you're thinking about it, stop thinking about it, get on with buying some tickets, because they do go very fast. So just, yeah, well done, Glenn, and looking forward to the festival. The other one I wanted to mention, Mayor, which all councillors, of course, were a part of, one of the events at least, was the Australia Day, Survival Day celebrations and acknowledgement on, of course, the 26th. I really, apart from a fantastic community event, another big thank you to Uncle Rick Nelson and all of his family who were involved, and others who were involved in making that an incredibly special day, and not only for the event that we had in Victory Park, but also for the event that he held up on Mount Alexander, or dare I say Liarganook, to acknowledge what that day meant initially from, or early in the morning, I should say, from an Indigenous person's perspective. We were really fortunate to be able to video both of those events, Mayor, and I can say that the one that was on Mount Alexander has been picked up by many people. I think over 800 people have viewed that ceremony that Uncle Rick Nelson did up on the mountain, and I'd thoroughly recommend anyone who hasn't seen it yet to go via our YouTube channel, the Mount Alexander Shire YouTube channel, and have a look at it. It's pretty special. And also about 150 people have watched the community event down in Victory Park. And again, there's some fantastic speeches in there from a number of people who were acknowledged for their contributions to the community, as well as some pretty lovely moments with some of our new Australian citizens, Mayor. So happy to answer any questions about any of the other matters on the list, Mayor, if you like. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Darren. You've certainly been very busy. An event that Darren and I both attended last week was the official opening of the last stage of the Castlemaine Secondary College redevelopment, and I'd just like to extend my thanks to the management committee, but also to the principal and the staff at Castlemaine Secondary College. They hosted a magnificent event, but more importantly, the facility that's been constructed on the original high school site is absolutely fantastic. It's a credit to everyone concerned, and I'd like to see our community really get behind that, because it's a wonderful facility. I'm a former student of both the secondary college and the Castlemaine Tech, but to see the standard of the facilities there, it is just amazing. And I'm sure there's really good things there ahead. So well done to all concerned. And it was opened by Marie Edwards, and Marie's worked very hard to get funding for that, various stages of that project, and there's a few more ideas in the pipeline, so stay tuned. But it's just it's a fantastic facility, and to see the staff and students working in first-class facilities, it's just a real eye-opener. So I enjoyed that very much. Councillors, I understand Councillor Anir wanted to give a report, so I'll hand over to Councillor Rosie Anir. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Last Thursday and Friday, I attended a workshop as the council delegate to the ZNet by 2030 Transition Steering Group, which met to continue the development of their strategic plan the work they are undertaking. The workshop used a program logic or theory of change model, which involved participants brainstorming and agreeing on a vision and the steps required to meet that vision, outputs, activities, and outcomes. The workshop was over 2 half-day sessions, which is an accelerated process. So the agreement was that this would result in a 70% good enough result. The report from the workshop, including the draft strategy and governance model, is still being finalised by the facilitator, Natalie Moxham of Leanganuk Yarn. The workshop was funded by Council from the funds allocated to the climate emergency for this financial year, plus significant in-kind contribution from all the other organisations present. Currently, the involved organisations are Mount Alexander Shire Council, Mount Alexander Sustainability Group, the Hub Foundation, Central Victorian Greenhouse Alliance, Nalderun, and Castlemaine Institute, as well as many passionate individuals. The workshop helped to clarify next steps, including critical input required for the submission of funding bids to the federal government's Building Better Regions Community Investment Stream and the Lord Mayor's Charitable Foundation. If successful, these bids will total almost $400,000 of investment to further the next stages of the project. These include setting up the next iteration of governance for the project, ensuring its sustainability over time, and including a growing membership base, a monitoring, evaluating and communications branch, a finance and fundraising branch, and a fully resourced coordinator role outside of Council. Funding a major communication campaign aimed at the community to understand how to build resilience in the face of climate change and guide engagement in the project's design and delivery. Kicking off major projects around reaching a 100% renewable energy goal by 2025 for Council and 2030 for the Shire, retrofitting all houses in the Shire, creating a local circular economy where businesses can source inputs locally and sustainably, and where waste is reused as a resource. The workshop comprised a broad range of activities, goals, and projects for consideration as part of the strategic plan in domains such as regenerative agriculture, biodiversity conservation, Indigenous reconciliation, local food systems resilience, business and community leadership around reaching zero net emissions, waste reduction, water security, and emergency preparedness. One of the main achievements was mapping out where the group needed to lead, partner, enable, or support, recognising the myriad of others already working in these spaces. This will inform the development of individual initiatives under the strategic plan, as well as the governance membership. The group, like many community-wide efforts, contains individuals with diverse views and skills who don't always get along, apparently, like many other groups. But it's a productive space and one where the work of laying foundations exists alongside implementation of specific initiatives, acknowledging the need to get things done now while simultaneously planning for the long term. This is a complex process, but it is being well managed, and considering the implications of COVID-19 and other hurdles, the group is making excellent progress. I had a really fantastic time. I learned a lot, and I walked away extremely positive about what needs to happen now and next. I'd like to thank Jodie Newcomb for helping me prepare this report, and all members of the ZNet group for making me feel so welcome. And that's it.
Thank you for that excellent report, Councillor Anea. It's great to see you're really getting into your role as a councillor in Castlemaine, and you're doing a fantastic job, so well done. Councillors, does anyone else wish to speak or give a delegate's report? Okay, there's no further delegates' reports. The remaining items on our agenda, we've got notice of motion and there's nil, urgent special business is nil, confidential items is nil. So I'll declare the meeting closed, and thank you for your attendance, councillors, and also thank you for your attendance, Directors Knight, Director Howard, and Augustine Shepherd, our governance officer. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you. Stay safe.